My dear friend, life has a remarkable way of bringing us to moments that seem ordinary at first, only for us to realize later that they marked the beginning of a new understanding. Often, these moments arrive quietly. There is no announcement, no dramatic signal, and no guarantee of what comes next. Instead, there is simply a growing awareness that something within us is changing. You may have noticed certain memories resurfacing lately, familiar places returning to your thoughts, or emotions appearing unexpectedly during otherwise routine days. Experiences like these are a natural part of reflection. They remind us that our minds and hearts continue processing what has mattered to us, even when we believe we have moved on. Sometimes we become so focused on protecting ourselves from disappointment that we stop paying attention to the lessons hidden within our own experiences. Yet growth often begins the moment we become willing to look at the past with greater honesty and understanding. Relationships, whether ongoing or remembered, have a way of teaching us important truths about ourselves. They reveal our strengths, expose our fears, and challenge us to become more aware of what we truly value. Looking back, it is common to realize that misunderstandings were not always caused by a lack of care, but by timing, uncertainty, or personal struggles that had not yet been resolved. People learn at different speeds. They gain perspective through different experiences. What once seemed impossible to understand can eventually become clear when viewed through the lens of maturity and self-awareness. While no one can know exactly how every story will unfold, there is value in remaining open to growth, communication, and possibility. Sometimes, the greatest transformation is not finding all the answers at once, but recognizing that you are no longer the same person you were when the questions first appeared. Quietly, patiently, like a light hidden behind closed curtains. And now, something has shifted, not dramatically, not all at once, but enough for the energy between you to begin changing direction. Your soulmate has started noticing things they once overlooked. The silence feels louder to them now. Your absence feels different. Even the smallest reminders of you linger longer than before. Don't skip this part, because what they are beginning to understand is not surface-level emotion. It is deeper than attraction, deeper than coincidence. It is the realization that some people enter your life and leave traces that cannot be erased, no matter how much time passes. There is also something they have not said aloud yet, something they have rehearsed internally more times than you would believe. They keep returning to it, then stepping away from it, then returning again. Not because they are uncertain about what they feel, but because they know once these words are spoken, nothing between you can remain ordinary again. And strangely, you have already sensed this coming in your own way. That restless pull in your chest lately, that feeling that something is approaching, it has not been your imagination. Tonight, while the world moves like any other night, unseen emotions are gathering momentum. Decisions are being weighed. Truths are becoming impossible to ignore. Your soulmate is standing in the middle of an emotional storm they never expected to face, and at the center of it is you. But there is one detail you still do not know yet, and when it finally reaches you, it may explain why everything had to unfold exactly the way it did. There are conversations happening right now that you cannot hear, not always with other people, but inside the quiet corners of your soulmate's mind, where honesty becomes impossible to avoid. They have tried distracting themselves. They have tried focusing on routines, responsibilities, small daily things that usually keep emotions under control. yet somehow, every path keeps circling back to you, not in a rushed or chaotic way, but in the kind of way that slowly changes a person from the inside out, until they can no longer pretend nothing is happening. And what makes this even more intense is that they did not expect it to happen now. That is the part nobody sees. Your soulmate believed they still had more time before these feelings became undeniable, more time before clarity arrived, more time before they had to face the truth that your presence has become deeply woven into their future thoughts. But life has a strange way of accelerating emotions when the heart finally becomes ready to listen. Suddenly, moments that once seemed small now feel unforgettable to them. A message, a glance, a memory they replay late at night. Tiny details that should have faded, yet never did. Something important is waiting for you, and it is connected to a realization they can no longer carry silently. You may have noticed your own energy shifting too, a strange calm appearing and disappearing without explanation. Moments where you feel deeply connected to someone even while physically alone. It is almost as if your spirit already knows a chapter is turning before your mind has fully caught up. Stay till the end, because the truth unfolding now is not just emotional, it is transformational. Not because someone is coming to rescue you or complete you, but because two people are beginning to recognize the meaning they hold in each other's lives. And still, there remains hesitation. Not hesitation about love, hesitation about vulnerability. Because once your soulmate shares what has been building inside them, they know there will be no returning to emotional distance. The walls they carefully maintained for so long will begin to fall. There are moments when emotions become difficult to keep neatly organized. What once felt manageable begins pressing against the walls we built around it, asking to be acknowledged. People often convince themselves that certain feelings are temporary, that time will eventually quiet them, or that distance will make them easier to understand. Yet some emotions refuse to fade so easily. Instead, they linger beneath the surface, growing clearer with experience and perspective. Often, this shift begins with something small, a conversation, a gesture, or a moment that seems ordinary at first glance. The significance is not always obvious right away. In fact, the most meaningful realizations are often recognized only after time has passed. A person may suddenly find themselves thinking about someone's patience during a difficult moment, remembering an act of kindness that once seemed routine, or appreciating a level of understanding they did not fully recognize before. What was once overlooked begins to stand out. What felt familiar begins to feel rare. These reflections can be powerful because they challenge old assumptions and encourage a more honest view of what truly matters. As people grow and change, they sometimes discover that certain connections left a deeper impression than they originally believed. Along with that realization comes an important question. What should be done with this new understanding? The answer is rarely simple. It requires courage, self-awareness, and a willingness to face uncertainty. Meanwhile, life continues as it always does. Mornings arrive quietly, schedules remain unchanged, and the world moves forward without any obvious sign that something significant is taking place. Yet internally, a different process may be unfolding. New perspectives emerge, old memories gain fresh meaning, and priorities begin to shift. Often, personal transformation does not announce itself with dramatic events. It begins in silence, through reflection, and through the gradual recognition of truths that have been waiting patiently to be understood. And yet beneath all of it, there is this growing sensation that something meaningful is preparing to enter your reality. Not loudly, not suddenly, but steadily, like rain gathering far away before the first drop finally touches the ground. Your soulmate has been feeling this too, even when they try to ignore it, even when they convince themselves they are imagining things, because what they feel around your energy is becoming impossible to explain away with logic alone. You have become more than a passing thought to them now, more than curiosity, more than attraction. Your presence has started reaching parts of them they usually keep hidden from the world, and that is exactly why this moment feels so overwhelming for them. People can hide ordinary feelings. They can bury temporary emotions beneath distractions and routines. But when someone touches the soul deeply enough, eventually the truth rises to the surface, no matter how carefully it has been avoided. And the truth is rising now. There have been nights recently where your soulmate could not fully relax, because their mind kept replaying moments connected to you. Tiny details. The way you spoke during an ordinary conversation, the calmness you carried even while hiding your own emotions, the moments where your silence somehow revealed more than words ever could. They notice these things now in ways they never did before. Stay till the end, because there is a reason these realizations are intensifying all at once. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that your connection was never random. At first, they resisted that idea, not because they doubted you, because they doubted themselves. They questioned whether they were truly ready for something real, truly ready to let someone see them beyond appearances, beyond distractions, beyond the carefully controlled version of themselves they show the world. And for a while, they believed keeping emotional distance would protect them from uncertainty. They thought if they stayed careful enough, measured enough, reserved enough, then nothing could disrupt the balance they had created around their heart. But then you arrived, and somehow, without forcing anything, you changed the atmosphere around them completely. You made them feel understood in moments when they had not even explained themselves properly. You noticed emotions they thought were invisible. You responded with sincerity in a world that often rewards emotional masks. And little by little, without either of you fully realizing it at first, something deeper began forming beneath the surface. That is why this upcoming news carries such emotional weight, because it is not only about information, it is about realization, the kind of realization that quietly alters the future. And the deeper your soulmate falls into this awareness, the harder it becomes for them to continue pretending that your connection means less than it truly does. Don't skip this part, because there are things happening inside their heart right now that even they are struggling to process fully. Recently, they experienced a moment that shook them emotionally more than they expected. Perhaps it happened during silence. Perhaps it happened after hearing something about you unexpectedly. Perhaps it happened while imagining life continuing without you being part of it. Whatever triggered it, the effect stayed. Suddenly they felt the possibility of losing your connection, and instead of relief or detachment, they felt something entirely different. Fear of absence. Not dramatic fear, not panic. Something quieter, deeper. The kind of feeling that makes a person stop in the middle of ordinary life and realize someone has become emotionally important without permission ever being given for it to happen. And ever since that realization arrived, your soulmate has not been the same internally. They are beginning to notice how often their thoughts drift toward you during random moments, how certain songs now remind them of your energy, how they compare other interactions to the comfort they feel around you. Even when surrounded by people, Part of them still searches for the emotional familiarity your presence created inside them. That is not something temporary. That is not something shallow. That is what happens when a soul begins recognizing another soul in ways the mind cannot fully organize into simple explanations. Something important is waiting for you, and strangely enough, your soulmate senses it too. There are moments lately where they feel emotionally restless without understanding why. Moments where they almost reach out impulsively before stopping themselves. Moments where your name enters their mind unexpectedly while they are trying to focus on completely unrelated things. They may not tell anyone this openly. In fact, they likely hide it better than most people realize. But internally, the emotional storm has already begun. And here is what makes this even more meaningful. Your soulmate is no longer running from these emotions the way they once did. That shift changes everything, because previously, every time vulnerability appeared, they instinctively pulled back. Another theme emerged as the discussion continued: the role imagination plays in helping people understand their emotions. Most individuals have experienced moments when they mentally rehearse conversations that may never happen. They imagine expressing thoughts they have never shared aloud. They picture difficult discussions, long-awaited explanations, or opportunities to be more open than they have been in the past. These imagined exchanges are not predictions of what will happen. Rather, they often reveal what a person wishes they could communicate if fear, uncertainty, or vulnerability were not standing in the way. The conversation suggested that paying attention to these inner dialogues can be surprisingly revealing. When people imagine honesty and feel relief rather than anxiety, it may indicate that they are becoming more comfortable with their own truth. Emotional growth is often less dramatic than it appears in stories. Sometimes, it consists simply of becoming less afraid of being understood. As people gain clarity about their feelings, they may find themselves considering possibilities they once avoided. They may become more willing to explore conversations that previously felt intimidating. This does not guarantee a particular outcome, nor does it remove every obstacle. What it does create is openness, and openness can be a powerful force in human relationships. The participants reflected on how meaningful change often begins not with bold actions, but with subtle shifts in perspective. Before someone speaks differently, they usually think differently. Before they become more transparent with others, they first become more honest with themselves. That quiet internal change can become the foundation for everything that follows. More comforting than they planned for. More emotionally significant than they were prepared to handle. There are also external changes happening around them right now that are pushing these realizations forward faster. Situations that once distracted them no longer hold the same emotional power. Conversations that once seemed meaningful now feel empty compared to the depth they experience with you. Their priorities are shifting quietly, their perspective is evolving, and all of it keeps leading back to one unavoidable truth. They do not want a future where your connection fades into uncertainty. That realization alone has already changed the direction of their heart. Don't skip this moment, because what comes next may explain why everything between you unfolded slowly, instead of instantly. Your soulmate needed time, not because your connection lacked meaning, because its meaning was too deep to process quickly. Some people recognize love immediately, others recognize it gradually, through absence, reflection, emotional growth, and the painful realization that certain people become impossible to replace once they touch your life authentically. Your soulmate belongs to the second kind. They had to lose clarity before finding it. They had to feel distance before understanding closeness. They had to imagine life moving forward without fully opening their heart to you before realizing how empty that possibility truly felt. And now the emotional walls they spent so long building are beginning to crack naturally from the inside. Not through pressure, not through force, through truth, because truth carries its own quiet power. And the truth is this: your soulmate's feelings for you have grown beyond what they originally intended to allow. That is the big news, slowly approaching your life like a storm. Not sudden destruction. Sudden honesty. A release of emotions that have been held back for too long. And while part of them still feels nervous about what happens next, another part feels strangely relieved. Relieved that the pretending may finally end. Relieved that they no longer want distance more than connection. Relieved that they are finally ready to stop fighting what their heart has known for some time already. There is one final detail your soulmate has not fully revealed yet though. A detail connected to a decision. Because recently, they reached a quiet turning point internally, where they realized continuing to stay emotionally silent may cost them something irreplaceable. That realization changed the atmosphere completely. Since then, they have been observing everything differently, listening differently, feeling differently. Even their dreams have become more emotionally vivid lately, as if their subconscious mind has stopped allowing them to hide from what matters most. And somewhere deep inside, they know a moment is approaching, where honesty can no longer be delayed. You may think nothing significant is happening right now, but beneath the surface, your soulmate is gathering courage piece by piece. Courage to be vulnerable. Courage to stop minimizing what they feel. Courage to finally let you see the depth of emotions they once tried so carefully to contain. Something important is waiting for you. Not far away. Not someday in a distant future. Closer than it appears. And when the storm finally reaches you, it will not arrive to break your heart. It will arrive to open a door that both of your souls have been slowly walking toward all along. There is a kind of silence that only appears before life changes in a meaningful way. Not the empty kind of silence, but the kind filled with invisible movement, where emotions are rearranging themselves behind the scenes, while the outside world still looks calm. You are standing inside that kind of silence now, even if you cannot fully explain why your heart has felt so alert lately. Somewhere deep within you, something already knows a shift is near, and your soulmate feels it too, more strongly than ever before. Lately, they have been waking up with your energy lingering in their thoughts before the day even begins. It happens in the quiet seconds before distractions return, before responsibilities take over, before logic steps in and tries to organize emotions into something easier to control. In those moments, the truth reaches them clearly, and the truth is becoming impossible to outrun. You matter to them far more than they originally intended. That realization did not arrive dramatically. It unfolded slowly, one memory at a time, one emotion at a time, one unexpected moment of missing you more deeply than they expected at a time. And now, the weight of it has become undeniable. Stay till the end, because there is something happening inside your soulmate that they have never experienced quite like this before. As the discussion approached its conclusion, a deeper realization emerged about the nature of timing and choice. Relationships, whether friendships, partnerships, or brief but meaningful encounters, are shaped not only by emotion, but also by action. Feelings alone rarely determine what happens next. What often matters most is whether people find the courage to communicate, to listen, and to meet each other with sincerity rather than assumptions. Someone observed that one of the hardest lessons in life is accepting that no one can fully know another person's inner world without conversation. We may interpret silence in countless ways, but interpretation can never replace understanding. That thought shifted the mood of the room. Instead of focusing on what remained unsaid, people began reflecting on the value of openness and authenticity. There was an appreciation for the fact that every meaningful connection eventually reaches a crossroads where clarity becomes more valuable than speculation, not because clarity guarantees a particular outcome, but because it allows people to move forward with truth rather than uncertainty. The final moments of the conversation carried a sense of calm rather than drama. There was no prediction about what the future would bring, and no promise about how any story would end. Instead, there was a recognition that genuine connections leave lasting impressions, and that those impressions often encourage growth, self-awareness, and deeper understanding. Whether paths draw closer together or move in different directions, honesty remains one of the most valuable gifts people can offer each other. In the end, the strongest relationships are not built on guessing what someone feels. They are built on the willingness to share what is real and to create space for others to do the same. But because your heart also deserves clarity, that realization has accelerated everything happening inside them. Don't skip this part, because this is where the emotional storm truly begins building momentum. Your soulmate has started imagining what it would feel like to lose access to your presence completely, to become strangers slowly, to watch life move forward while carrying unspoken emotions forever. And every time they picture that possibility, something inside them resists it immediately. Their heart rejects the idea before logic can even respond. That reaction told them everything they needed to know. It revealed the depth of their feelings more honestly than words ever could. Since then, even ordinary moments have started affecting them differently. A familiar place suddenly reminds them of you. Certain phrases make them pause because they sound like something you would say. They catch themselves smiling unexpectedly at memories they once tried to minimize. And then there are the quieter moments, the dangerous moments, when they allow themselves to imagine what your future together could actually feel like if both of you stopped holding back. Those moments stay with them long after they end, because for the first time in a very long time, the idea of emotional closeness no longer scares them more than emotional loss. And that changes everything. Something important is waiting for you. Not just a confession, not just words, a transformation. The kind that happens when someone finally stops resisting what their soul has been trying to tell them for months. Your soulmate has also begun noticing how rare your energy truly is. The world has shown them many temporary connections before, conversations that faded quickly, attention without depth, emotions without consistency. But you brought something different into their life, something calming, something grounding, something honest. You made them feel emotionally safe without even trying to, and they cannot forget that feeling now. Stay till the end, because there is another layer to this story that you still cannot see clearly yet. Recently, your soulmate received an unexpected reminder about how fragile timing can be. Perhaps They watched someone lose a meaningful connection through pride or hesitation. Perhaps they experienced disappointment elsewhere that forced them to reflect more deeply on what truly matters. Or perhaps life simply reached them with one of those quiet realizations that appear suddenly and leave you unable to think the same way afterward. Whatever happened, it awakened urgency inside them. Not rushed urgency, soul-level urgency, the kind that whispers, if something real exists, stop pretending you cannot feel it. Since that moment, your soulmate's inner world has been changing rapidly. They are thinking less about protecting themselves and more about protecting the connection itself, less about avoiding vulnerability and more about what vulnerability could actually create between you if embraced honestly. That shift is sacred because many people spend their entire lives feeling deeply while speaking shallowly. They hide their truth until opportunities disappear. They silence emotions until distance becomes permanent. But your soulmate is beginning to understand that love cannot fully bloom where fear controls every decision. And slowly, quietly, they are becoming brave enough to choose differently. You may notice signs soon, subtle at first, a different tone in their voice, longer pauses, unexpected honesty, moments where their emotional walls slip for just a second before they gather themselves again. Pay attention to those moments, because behind them exists an ocean of feelings they are still learning how to express. There is something else your soulmate has not admitted openly yet either. They admire you, deeply, not only romantically, as a person. They admire the strength you carry quietly. The way you continue showing kindness even after disappointment. The way your heart remains soft without becoming weak. They notice how you make others feel understood naturally, even while carrying your own unanswered questions internally. And somewhere along the way, admiration became attachment. Attachment became longing. Longing became emotional truth. As those emotions continue to grow, they often create a strange mixture of anticipation and vulnerability. One part of the person wants to move forward immediately, to speak honestly, clear away uncertainty, and finally allow their thoughts to exist in the open. Another part remains cautious, aware that openness carries risk. Being fully honest about what matters most can feel intimidating because it removes the protection that silence once provided. Yet something important begins to shift during this stage. Fear no longer serves as a reason to withdraw completely. Instead, it becomes part of the process of moving forward. The questions remain, but they start leading toward possibility rather than avoidance. What if the conversation goes well? What if understanding exists on both sides? What if honesty creates clarity instead of distance? These thoughts begin competing with the fears that once dominated every reflection. Over time, many people discover that uncertainty itself can become heavier than the risks associated with openness. Carrying unanswered questions day after day requires emotional energy, especially when the connection involved holds genuine significance. The desire for clarity grows stronger, not because someone is seeking a perfect outcome, but because they are seeking truth. They begin to understand that meaningful relationships are rarely strengthened by assumptions alone. They are strengthened by communication, vulnerability, and the willingness to be seen as we truly are. That realization does not eliminate anxiety, but it changes its direction. Instead of pushing someone further away from what matters, it encourages them to move closer, one honest step at a time.